So it's that time of the week again. We are here. It is Power Hour, which means that it is 12 o'clock UK time here in the UK. And as you can clearly see, I am joined by an extremely glamorous guest, but at the same time, not only glamorous, an extremely knowledgeable and informative and skillful guest within the field that we are about to talk about, which I'm so unbelievably excited to talk about. This is, of course, the holistic queen herself, Miss Dayana Carmona, soon to be Mrs. Lewis Raymond Taylor. I'm excited about that, Dayana. I can't wait for that. Dayana, tell us how you're feeling, what you're thinking, what you're feeling.
I'm excited to be back here again because, it's like I think it was last year that I was last on here. So it's excited, especially now that I'm doing it with you, because it's like, feels like when you're not here, then I'm doing it. And when I'm not there, hey, you're doing it. So it's kind of like nice that we're coming together now. And
exactly.
Just,
Exactly. I love it. We're coming at it from a teamwork. And of course, talking about team, you have always been part of the team, but there is something that I'm not going to give the details about just yet. Now, if you're part of our community, right? But if you're listening to the podcast and you're inside of Coaching Mastery and you're not yet a Coaching Masters member, first and foremost, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why are you not a Coaching Masters member? You should be by now. But for those Coaching Masters members, they will know at this point as to how and why you're becoming even more closely part of the team than ever before. But we're just going to tease it at the moment. Dayana, considering that we can't talk about the details of that, just let me know, how are you feeling about it?
I am beaming with so much joy because this thing is like my little baby. I've been creating it for so long.
Yes, I love it. I know, and you're going to be phenomenal. But I've got to make sure I don't give too much away. And I know if I dive into it, it's just going to give it all away. But for those listening to the podcast and for those non-TCM members that are inside of Coaching Mastery, the crazy ones, right? You will find out very, very soon what we're talking about. But today kicks off a theme that we're going to be running for at least the next few weeks. Now, this is a very important theme within the realm of coaching, and it is a theme that Dayana knows considerably more about than I do. She is the expert, and so I'm here to learn along with everybody else. And that theme is holistic coaching, and more specifically today, the journey of becoming a holistic coach with the one and only Dayana Carmona. Dayana, there's one question that I've got that I really want to ask you to kick this off. And I am a student here. I really am a student here. I'm going to learn a lot from you because this isn't my realm of coaching. I'm a coaching expert, a coaching master. I bring a lot of masculine energy to the coaching space, a lot of boom, 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 go, 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 build, build, build. But I hugely respect the more feminine side and the more feminine energy that coaching really needs and deserves. What does holistic mean to you? When I say the word holistic, what does that mean to you as a holistic coach?
For me, really, that's a really good question because it's like, I know the term already on its own. So it's kind of like, what does it mean for me? Right. It's like, okay. Well, for me, really, it just means creating this unison of the synergy, having the interaction play out within yourself, in relation to your mind, your body, your soul, and your emotions. So being in complete synergy between those four key pillars, as I call them, within yourself. So that way you can bring yourself into whole. So really interacting with yourself in that way and giving yourself the needs that you need behind those four areas in your life.
Absolutely.
That's another terminology of it. So I'm kind of like, okay, that's my take on it.
Well, I love that because what you're describing there in my mind is what it means to be a human. And that's where I feel holistic coaching plays such a key part in coaching as a whole and the whole coaching journey, because of course, when we're talking about breaking down limiting beliefs and mindset development and achieving goals and shifting perspective, we're talking about a very core part of the human experience. But you're talking about an even more important part of the human experience, and that's being a human being and understanding how to be a human being. We were never given the user manual, right? The guide on how to be a human being. You kind of got to work that stuff out on your own. So when you're being taught those elements by someone like yourself, I feel it's like a time machine. You know, you're able to jump so far ahead of everybody else because you're really learning what it means to be human. That's my masculine thing again, isn't it? Let's get ahead.
You bring a really good point because, that is what holism it's all about. It's just being able to see yourself as a whole. And in this case, as holistic coaches, is to be able to see your client, other people as wholes, and how, some things are maybe not interacting properly. And so it's where being human comes in, being able to understand yourself and then therefore being understanding of others, and with the good that they bring and with also the bad that they bring. Because it's like, for me, one of the key components and the key pillars of holistic coaching, or principles, I guess, that I teach and that I base myself of, is basically the principle of being understanding of others. And that is so important because that's what creates a better world. So
true. Yeah. So true. I want to get to know a little bit more about your journey. Now, of course, for everybody watching this live and for everybody listening to the podcast, me and Dayana know each other very well. We've had various different games nights at mine and Claudia's apartment here in London. There's some of our favorite evenings when me, Claudia, Dayana and Lewis are playing board games and eating pizza. I love it, right? Doesn't happen often enough, but I do love it. So obviously we know each other really well, but I still want to get to know more about your journey. Right. So let's kick this off by you giving us a little bit of an insight into why and how holism became a part of your life, and it became something that you're, of course, now an expert in. But why did you become interested in holism in the first place?
I love talking about this, and at the same time scared of it because it's such a loaded question, right? Because it's just not like, there are many things in my life that have happened that have allowed me to be where I am right now. But to put it into perspective and kind of like take it back into the beginning, is it all started when I moved to college away from home, away from my parents and everything. And I've always been interested, not always, but for a big part of my teenage years, I was interested in psychology and how the human brain works and why we work the way that we do and all of that. And when I moved to college to pursue my degree in psychology, I did not expect to shake me the way that it did. I've always wanted to be like, from all my teenage years, I was like, I want to get out of house. I want to get out of my house and just move away and just be by myself and all of this. And when it actually happened, it shook me to my core because I felt so lonely and so away from everybody that I loved. And it was really hard for me. And so it took a toll in my mental health. I was showing symptoms of depression and symptoms of anxiety. I was with the mixture of those two. And because at the time I didn't completely know how to manage it myself, I develop anger management issues, which is not something that I say often because not many people think that I have anger issues because, I'm like so lovely or whatever and nice or whatever, but I did. And my ex at the time, my partner at the time, took everything because I just took it out on that first person that I knew. And he mirrored back to me how I was just not being fair to people. And I realized, that's when I kind of started to realize that it's just, there's something that needs to change because this is not who I am. I shouldn't be lashing out to my parents. I shouldn't be lashing out to the people that I love and whatnot. And so I started going to yoga classes, like classes inside of my college. I was doing yoga before that, but it was mostly for flexibility. And this time I was going because I'm like, I need something that is going to bring me joy and do something different and dive into it. And so I started practicing yoga in a community-based, like group classes. And whilst taking those classes, I realized that there was so much connection between yoga and psychology, what I was studying. which I wasn't getting in my studies. Like, obviously they were teaching me how to depression, this, and that. And, maybe individual psychology and this, and that. So it was like very theoretical, which I appreciate. But when I started to do yoga, I started to experience it. And that was the key and the turning point for me. And how I was like, oh my God, I need to bring yoga and psychology together because this just makes sense. They both go hand in hand. And I started diving deeper into it. And then I went through a really hard breakup, and I went into therapy, and she started to uplift me and tell me, what is it that you really, really want to do? And when I did my yoga teacher training, that's when I decided to do my yoga teacher training. I was like, everything that I learned in there, philosophy wise, about how we are as humans, what we need, and reflecting upon ourselves and learning how to control our thoughts and learning how to manage our emotions and regulate ourselves and go inward. I was like, okay, this just being human just makes more sense now. And when everything came together like that, while I was studying psychology, doing my mental health counseling, and then now coming really deep into the practice of yoga, of what actual yoga was or is, I realized how everything that I knew before, I didn't know. Like, I realized how my body was influencing my mind, how my mind was influencing my body, my emotions was influencing the way that I was showing up in my life, physically, mentally. And then I started to connect a lot deeper with myself, which was my soul. And that's how it started my journey, basically, of just really getting to know myself and finding that wholeness within me. Basically.
It's interesting because there's such a key element of that journey, which is an unlearning. And this is a common theme of people who become an expert in a field such as coaching, because you have such an unbelievable realization that you need to unlearn the things that you thought you knew and the way that you thought you should behave and think and act and the places you should be and the people you should be around. It's like we become so conditioned to live life in a certain way. And then all of a sudden there is a realization, or there's a moment in which you realize there's so much you don't know, and the things you do know, you need to unlearn. And then you go on this journey of discovery and growth and transformation, which you definitely did, for sure. Talking about the journey and growth and transformation and change, you're a very close friend of mine. So, of course, I know that the last year has been a very significant year, yet it's not my story to tell. And the best person to speak about your own journey is you, and everybody wants to hear about your journey from you, because you are you, and you're Dayana Carmona, you're the holistic queen, you're here, TCM, you're the one, right? You're the one. So I would love to know about some of the most significant days throughout your life where holistic modalities have really helped you.
Yeah. So like I said, in my college years, that was the first time that it came into my life through the manifestation of yoga practice. And then I think that was like one of the hardest things that has ever happened to me, because overall I've had a really good life. But last year was definitely the hardest thing I've ever had to face in the entire world. And going through pregnancy loss and going through that process was terrifying, daunting, horrible, and just heartbreaking. A lot of grief was involved, and I'm still going through it, not gonna lie. I mean, it's something that I think I'm gonna continue to go through my whole life, just losing my baby. And it's hard as it sounds, because obviously it sounds really hard, but it's the truth. That's just, I lost my child, my baby. And that is having all these tools and learned everything that I have learned over the years and practicing it, because I could have learned all of these things and not ever taken it into action, or just be like, oh yeah, I read about it and that was great, but actually put it into practice whilst I learned it, allowed me to give myself gentleness and compassion and non-judgment when I was going through the worst time in my life. And it still does. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm still human. And sometimes I'm judging myself. I'm like, I should be okay already. I should be. But then I come back to the whole, I take my step back, because that's just kind of like my ego talking, just being like, trying to make things make sense. And then that's when I have to kind of sit back, kind of as well surrender to what's happening, and give myself that gentleness, and use the tools that I've used before of meditation, of kind of allowing myself again to just sit with it, observe what is happening around me, and then giving myself that space to grieve, giving myself that space to be angry, to be sad, to cry, right? Because I feel like what it's lacking a lot in the world is that allowing yourself and giving yourself permission to feel what you're feeling and going through in the moment. And all of these tools that I've learned, it's not like I did anything in specific. It's just everything, because I've done that before in the past, it gave me the resilience and the ability to navigate it with gentleness, with kindness for myself, with acceptance, that's the best way that I can give it, like with gentleness, with compassion, just surrendering to it, allowing myself to feel the emotions, allowing myself to go through the process without having to rush through it, without having to necessarily do anything to me or have it heal or anything. It's just, I'm going through this. And because I learned all of those modalities and all those resources, I have all these resources, it allowed me to manage it, to navigate through it, which is, I think, the most important thing out of everything that I've learned.
It's really important, because what it highlights, which I think is really significant that we should always be highlighting, is that even when you are an expert in a particular field, there are still really tough times where utilizing the modalities and using them can be really, really, really hard. Yet having a recognition that it's ultimately good for us and we understand them, and we're going to use those modalities, and we're going to endeavor to have them a part of our life, even when we're going through a tough time. And sometimes we trip and we fall. And sometimes there are days where it's almost impossible to apply that stuff, but then we try again the next time round. So I'm talking about this from a point of view of being a mindset expert, after having lost my dad. There are days where my mindset expertise saved me, and there are other days where I just absolutely couldn't even think about it, and I had to have just a 100% completely down day, and I can imagine the holistic modalities have really, really, really helped you going through a hard time. And there are going to have been times where it's all gone out the window for a day, because it just happens like that, right? So I think it's important for everybody to hear that from experts, because when people look inwards, I feel like there can be the misconception that the experts don't have those down days, and everything is flawless, and we do everything flawlessly. And it's not the case. That's not the point of mastering these modalities. The point of having them is that you're always going to be in a much better position to have them than not to have them. And it doesn't mean that you need to have perfected them and they work for you every single day and all of the time, but they're there, and we've got the skill set. It's better to have it than not to have it, right?
And I think it's also just the fact of what you have learned from everything you've learned. So what I have learned from all of those modalities, it gave me that position of that resilience, right? I didn't necessarily have to do EFT tapping on myself or Reiki energy healing. Is what I learned through those sessions or through those practices that I gave to myself that allowed me to be in that space of just surrender, of just feeling my feelings, of just allowing everything to come up, and then therefore transcending that pain, transcending it. And I mean, obviously some days are better than others, and that's just how life is. And the understanding of holism and holistic coaching specifically, and everything that I've learned and teach, is to give yourself that space, to give yourself that room, that you don't necessarily have to go into action mode and do EFT tapping or do a meditation or anything. It's not about that. It's like, okay, from what you have gathered from on your good days, when you actually apply those things, how can you give yourself that room? It's that gentleness, that compassion, that allowing, to be wherever you are, basically.
Yes, absolutely. Out of the holistic modalities, and this is going to be, again, I'm a student in this environment, which I really am enjoying, because this is an area which you just know considerably more about me, more than me. What holistic modalities in particular would you say have been really key for you during those times throughout your life, during those, I don't even want to necessarily just say during tough times throughout your life, because of course we have all different types of experiences, don't we? We're complex humans with complex emotions, but through some of the more significant moments throughout your life, what have been some of the more significant modalities that you've really leaned on?
The main one that pops into my mind is yoga. I just have such a beautiful relationship with it. It has taught me so much, both in every single area of my life, honestly. That one is the main one. And after that, I would have to say it would be cacao, because I do cacao ceremonies. And that's, many people think it's just drinking chocolate, which essentially it is. It's drinking chocolate, really hot chocolate without the milk. And that just gives you a space of serenity, of openness, and of sitting with yourself, and opens up that realm for meditating better, which is kind of like the third one that I like to go to, just allowing myself to be and observe and just confront with whatever is happening in my life. So taking mindfulness into a different perspective. So I would say that those are my top three out of everything that I've learned. I mean, Reiki is a beautiful one, but I don't use it as often as I probably would like to, because my go-to has always been yoga. It's just kind of moving everything, which is just moving the energy, moving my body, moving my emotions, and just allowing myself to be there.
Nice. I love that. Now, of course, we are the coaching masters. This is coaching mastery. People within our realm are coaches, or at least working their way towards becoming coaches. Why do you think the holistic approach and holistic coaching and holistic modalities are an important thing for a coach to learn?
I think because while talk therapy is good, talking things out is good, your body is so much more wiser than your cognitive mind, than your actual consciousness. Because your body stores energy that you're not even aware of. Things that happened in the past that you didn't resolve, that you didn't allow yourself to express or feel in the moment, that are stored in energetic points in your body. And so sometimes talking is not enough, because it's not going to bring you resolution, or it's not going to bring you insight. Sometimes just sitting in silence is more than enough. Sometimes moving the body to allow yourself to move that energy that is internal, that hasn't been moved in a while, is more than enough. And it's what it's going to get you to talking. Sometimes sitting deep in a visualization, and you get so much insight from that inner you. So that's something that I really, really love to do with people, is sitting with them and guiding them into a deep meditation, so they can connect to that deepest part of themselves, which is their spirit, their own soul, and talk to that part. What does it need? What does it's really doing that deep inner work and connecting deep with yourself. And I think that is what is missing in the coaching industry, is just really tapping into that modality of, you don't necessarily need to talk or express or share. You just need to be with yourself and see what comes up. And then if you want to share, great. And if you want to release it, great, let's release it. And that's what I think is such a beautiful thing to add on to coaching.
What immediately popped into my head as you were saying that was the idea of a Chinese finger trap. You know how with a Chinese finger trap, if you try your hardest to sort of pull your fingers apart from each other and really resist in a big, big way, then the trap becomes tighter and it locks you in. But in order to get out of the trap, you just need to relax and sort of bring your hands together and bring your fingers together and almost surrender. That's a word that you've used, which is really, really significant, I think, and just kind of surrender to the environment and the process, and it will free you from the trap. This is so similar in that way. It's kind of like saying that you just have to be, don't try to fight against it. Don't try to find an answer. Don't try to logically go and work out where the key is, or try to smash it down, and all of these things that we kind of hear in that very like go, let's build something, let's create something, in that kind of environment that you find yourself in when you work within a world of motivation or inspiration and coaching and business building and all of this stuff, which there's definitely a need for it. But at the same time, that can sometimes create in moments that level of resistance, which will trap you. And therefore you need to just not resist, and you need to just surrender and be. And that's kind of what I'm hearing is like a big element of this, right?
Yeah, for sure. Because if you're not ready to talk about it, asking questions or trying to internalize it and cognitively think about it, you won't get the answer because you're not ready to talk about it. And sometimes maybe just opening up your heart, for example, is just like stretching your chest and just opening at it. It just will allow you to be like, release all this tension that maybe you're holding on. It's just as simple as that, for example. But it's really, the key is in, like you said, just surrendering into it, but also the need of not having to talk about it, but just experiencing it.
Yeah.
So much inside sometimes.
That's really overlooked, I think, in a big way, because it's almost as if when you're not putting yourself in a position to just experience what it is in front of you, or what's going through, what's happening in your life at the time, we all have this tendency to look beyond what's immediately in front of us. What's next? What am I doing next week or next year? Or what's the next goal I want to achieve? Or where's the next place I'm going to? I find this so much, even when, and I used to fall into this trap all the time. I'll give you a great, very simple example. Me and Claudia would make the decision that we were going to go and see a movie, right? And we'd be really looking forward to seeing the movie, to the point where whatever I was doing at the time, I would just be thinking forward and thinking, oh, I can't wait to go and see that film. And then when we went and sat down in the cinema, as soon as the movie begins, I'd be thinking about what's next. I'll be like, okay, but now we're going to go for dinner. And where are we going to go for dinner? I'm really looking forward to going for this dinner. Then we'd go and sit down for dinner, and I'd be thinking about the journey home, like what's coming next. So to be able to just experience the current experience that you're having, I feel is primarily the reason as to why when people get to the end of their life, they go, oh my God, that went so fast. It just went by in the blink of an eye. And it's because you're always constantly looking at the next experience. But what you're talking about is being able to just experience your present, current reality to get some understanding around that. I just think that is huge. Like, it's such a massively overlooked part of the human experience.
Sure. It's the inability to be present, to be in the here and now. And I mean, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I've struggled with it. I mean, it's very normal, but we're still human. I mean, we're perfectly imperfect, and we're still going to struggle with things like that. But it's catching yourself when you do it, right? Because you do it on hindsight. You're like, oh, I just spent the whole time thinking about the next thing. And it's just in that moment, being conscious enough, being intentional enough about the things that you're doing, about your day-to-day, about where you are. And just, if that comes into your mind, just be like, wait, but what am I doing right now? It's such a hard and simple thing to do, because the simplest things are the hardest things to do, I feel like. And that is so simple, of just trying to catch your thoughts, trying to catch your attention as well, and bring it back into the present moment. And that is a key component of mindfulness. And that's why I love teaching about meditation, because meditation brings that getaway for mindfulness, being able to observe your reality, being here and now, rather than in the past or in the future, which both will cause you depression and anxiety. And so you're always trying to look forward to something, or you're always remembering something. And it's like, you're never here in this space. And in this space, this is all there ever exists. It's all there ever is, was, and will be, because it's all you have right now.
That's so true. That's so huge. Tell me a little bit about some of the various different modalities that there are, holistic modalities. You've touched on a couple there. For instance, Reiki and yoga. Tell me about a few more.
Yeah. So we have Reiki, which is essentially energy healing. Cacao ceremonies, which is the most recent one that I learned, which is such a beautiful space to hold yourself in. It's basically drinking hot chocolate, even though it's not. Then we have also mindfulness, meditation. We have yoga, body movement, and breathing, breath work. The breath is so powerful. It holds so much knowledge. And it's the one thing that we do every single time, every single day, every single second. And we take so much for granted because it holds so much power. It's basically our life. It's literally our life. And that's what we called in yoga, we call it prana, which is energy. your energy. So when we talk about breath work, we also call it pranayama, which is breath control, but it's essentially holding and knowing how to control your own energy because it's what gives you life.
Ooh, that's
so those are a couple of things.
That is absolutely fucking huge. Honestly, that is. That's like what we're focusing in on there is the essence of life, what it means to be alive. And there's so many things like rushing through my head when you say that. The first thing being that one beautiful thing that we take for granted. The second, someone, let's say, for instance, right, this is a little bit of like a morbid image, but let's say, for instance, somebody fucking covers your mouth and nose, right? And they start to suffocate you. The second that happens, everything you've ever been worried about just fades away because you are concerned with catching your breath. That's the only thing that's on your mind at the time, right? All of a sudden, the world disappears. And the one mission you've got is that you need to take a breath because it becomes the most important thing that's in front of you, right? And we take it for granted every day.
We do. I mean, even in the simplest forms, as maybe not so morbid, you know, in the way that you said it, but maybe just going for a swim at the beach or at the pool. And when you're like holding your breath down or you're swimming and then you're just like, you're way too deep and you're like trying to get to the top, like rushing. And we just take that for granted because it's literally this little thing that we do automatically because we don't even have to make much effort for it. It's so powerful. It literally holds so much life. But at the same time, we as humans haven't been taught how to properly breathe. It's kind of like, where is this being taught? Because nobody knows how to breathe. I didn't know how to breathe. And I'm still learning every single day because I know more people more advanced than me. And I'm just like trying to learn how to properly breathe. And for a really long time, I was breathing in and pulling my belly in, and then on the exhale, pulling my belly out. And that is not the correct way of breathing. But nobody taught me that.
Yeah, sure. And it's so key. And it's so unbelievably key. Is that one thing that pops in my head as well? I think you'd be quite interested in this, Dayana. When I was in drama school, there was an entire class dedicated to studying how the character that you're going to play, how they breathe. Because the idea was exactly as you've just described, that breath is the essence of life. So if you understand how someone breathes, then you can truly start to understand how they think, how they move, how they feel. You get to know that person, because if that person's got a very short, sharp breath, if they've got a very long, relaxed breath, if they, all the different various types of ways that a human being can breathe is an indicator of how that person is living at the time and what they're thinking and feeling. Because it's the one thing, it's the one essence of life. The example you gave there about like if you went too deep underwater and then you have to swim up to catch your breath, that argument that you had last week fades away. That thing you're worried about at work fades away. Everything fades away because in that immediate moment, it is the most important thing within your existence, within your life at the time. I remember years ago when I first started on Instagram, I posted a quote. It was like one of the first ever quotes I posted. And it just said, that breath you just took, that's a gift. And it was such a short, sharp reminder of exactly what we're taking for granted every day, because that breath, every breath we take is a gift. But now what you're teaching people is how to actually use that gift, because it's one thing having it, but it's another thing actually being able to use it.
100%, because it's so healing. I mean, just if you're under stress or if you've been running for too long, just taking really long, deep breaths, that calms down your nervous system, that calms down your heart rate, just that simple thing. And maybe doing other types of breaths helps you go fall asleep even faster. And some type of breaths also will help you go dive deep into yourself, into a whole different level of consciousness that you can't even access when you're normally breathing. So the breath, it's such a powerful tool that literally it's under our noses, and it's like, we don't know how to use it. We don't know how to use it. Everybody has it available to them for free, and we don't know how to properly use it. We take it for granted when it's actually so healing. I mean, just taking a couple of deep breaths calms your nervous system down, helps you be more relaxed, helps you be more focused. And we forget that.
Big time. I tell you what, Dayana, that's a great title for a book. Your greatest gift is right under your nose. Trademark it. quickly trademark it. That's going to get snatched up straight away. But it's so true, isn't it? You know, the greatest gift that we've got, it is right under our noses. You know, it's right there. It's the breath. And bearing in mind that breath is just one element of holistic modalities, that alone should be enough to excite so many coaches who could use this in their coach. I tell you what, if there was an entire, and I'm sure there are somewhere around the world, but if there was an entire program that was only focused on the breath as a coach, I'd snap that up, because even though it's only one element of holistic coaching, it's such a key element. And then when you stack on top of that all of the other stuff that you get when you become a holistic coach, there is a reason as to why you're then considered one of the most impactful and influential coaches in the world when you have that kind of skill set. There's a huge element of that I'm quite envious of. I want that skill set. I'm going to learn it. I'd learn it from you, Dayana. That's for sure.
I'd love to learn it. Thank you.
100%, no doubt. Like, I'll be your student, because you know, there are elements of it that I know, of course, but it really is such a key element of the human experience, and therefore the coaching journey, that everyone needs it. Like, everyone really truly needs it as part of their arsenal of tools, you know, that they use in their coaching sessions.
Definitely. And it's just so beautiful as well, because while all of these tools you're learning, you can do them yourself. So you teach your clients to do that, so that way they have that resource forever. So it's kind of like the healing, and you don't need external things. Yeah, you need a helping hand to guide you through that process. But once you learn it, you don't really need much, because you have everything within yourself. And that is the key of what I love to bring inside of holistic coaching and this holistic modalities, is you learning that the answers, the healing, the tools, they're all available to you, because they are carried inside of your body, inside of your mind, inside of your emotions, inside of your soul. It's just within you. You just need a helping hand. I mean, that's just really it. So when you learn this, you're able to give that to yourself, and at the same time give it to others. And then when you give it to others, they get that for themselves. And that is such a beautiful thing to do and give. It
is. And it's so well complements coaching in a huge, huge way. You know, that connection between the mind and the body, and the body and the mind, you know, that's no joke. That's some serious stuff. That's a real connection that is happening on a daily basis, whether we like it or not. And so being able to reward someone with understanding how to utilize that connection and how to really maximize it is phenomenal. You know, we talk a lot about mindset development in traditional coaching, and that mindset development, you know, does have an effect on someone's physiology, but being able to really truly affect someone's physiology in order to open up more gateways and doorways in the person's mind is the perfect two-way street that every coach really needs to master. I'm excited by it. I think that this is going to be a really nice theme for the next few weeks on these podcasts. I think it's something that the world needs more of. I think the world needs to know more about this stuff and action it and do more about it. And you know what? That also includes me. I am a firm believer in the effects of breath work and meditation and healing and yoga. And I'm one of those very classic people that don't do enough of it. And therefore I need it more introduced into my life, because I firmly recognize the benefits of it. And I think this is going to be where it's going to be so lovely learning from you, because it's a way of introducing it to our lives, you know, and I think that is key. Everyone needs a way of having it in their lives, as well as part of their tool set as a coach. Everyone in this community, we're coaches, right? So we understand the benefits of this kind of development, but we need to action it. You know, we need to do it and recognize it and learn about it. And you're certainly the person to learn from, Dayana. What are you most excited about in terms of the kind of series of power hours that me and you are going to have over the next month talking about this topic? What excites you the most about that?
I think it's what it unleashes, because the more you're able to free flow and talk about this stuff, the more golden nuggets out of nowhere come up, right? Because we can bounce ideas of one another and everything. It's just like one thing you say and it's like, oh my God, there's so much wisdom in that. And I think being able to show that to people about how that brings that into your life, and just teaching people about it, because I think the learning aspect, the teaching of it, first you need to understand in order to then apply it to yourself. And so that those little wisdom and the things that can be unleashed on these next few weeks and everything, I think that's going to be so powerful because it brings people more into themselves.
Definitely. Most definitely. Now, also very exciting to say, you actually ran the first ever workshop that we've hosted at Cafe Coach in Bali.
Yes, I did.
And you did that today. I can't believe it. That's just so good. So for everybody listening to this live or on the podcast, Cafe Coach is not just a place for coaches to gather and have an incredible breakfast, you know, and run some coaching sessions on their laptop. It's also a place where we run workshops for people and for coaches primarily, but for people that also want to get into coaching. And so what was the topic of the workshop that you ran today?
So today's topic was about how to use the wheel of wellness to have balance in your life. And this is something that I'll teach in something very fun coming soon. So I'm like,
Yes, coming soon. Now, like I mentioned before, if you're already a Coaching Masters member, you know what we're talking about because I did announce this today. If you're not yet a member, you have to hold tight because something very exciting is coming. But I would have loved to have been there at that workshop today for a few different reasons. One, I would love to actually visit the cafe that I own at some point.
Sure, you've never been.
that would be quite nice to actually have, you know, an eggs Benedict in the cafe that I own. But secondly, because it would be a phenomenal workshop and I can imagine it was great. What was the vibe like?
It was very relaxed because I think that's just how the energy that I give off. So it was very casual, very nice, a lot of people loved it. Actually, I got a lot of feedback afterwards and they were loving it and they got a lot of like insights and they were like, wow, this is such a practical way of just getting in touch with myself, of just sitting back and just be like, okay, this is for me, and just taking that time and going deep. And so I loved doing it as well. I was very nervous at first, because the first ever workshop, I'm like, oh, this is a lot of pressure of kind of like setting the tone for the next workshops. But they were like, I think you did an excellent job. I'm like, okay, thank you. That's good. That's really good. So now like, if anybody tops it off.
No doubt that you did an excellent job. Like there was never any doubts about that whatsoever from the very beginning. And how amazing, you know, the first ever workshop at Cafe Coach. And at some point there are going to be cafe coaches all around the world and workshops happening every day over the next 200 years, 300 years, but you were always the first one. That's incredible.
Oh my God. Yeah. When you say it like that, yeah, I was the first one ever. That's pretty cool. Actually, it's such a privilege and honor. Honestly, it was just so good to be able to do it, especially to do something in person because we're so used to doing all this stuff on Zoom. So it's like doing it in person was like, just gave a nice personal element to it as well, which is really cool.
Incredible. Well, talking about a privilege and an honor, Dayana, it is a privilege and an honor that you have been spending some of your very, very valuable time talking with me on Power Hour today. It's definitely not the last time. We have Power Hours happening together as a team every week for the next few weeks. So let us know in the comments who is excited about that. Who's excited about learning more and more about holistic coaching from the holistic queen, Dayana Carmona, during Power Hours. I know that everyone's going to be totally buzzing about that. And so, Dayana, it has been a pleasure.
I'm excited to learn.
Yes, I can't wait. I'm here. I'm absorbing it all. I do believe next week's Power Hour is you, Dayana, handing over some interesting information and some teaching everybody some cool stuff, as you always do whenever you do Power Hour. But this being very holistic coaching focused, and then I'll be back the week after that with you as a team for a couple of weeks. But it's been a pleasure. It has been a real pleasure. We don't talk enough. I know that it's always amazing when you're back in the UK and then we get together and stuff. Me, you, Lewis, and Dayana. Me, you, Lewis, and Dayana. I'm not used to saying that. Me, you, Lewis, and Claudia. But yeah, we need to do this more. We need to make this a bit more of a running theme, I think.
I love it. I think it's really cool because we are so different energies, like you said, so masculine, so feminine. And it's like, it just brings a nice balance and just kind of like talking about different things and different perceptions and perspectives. It's pretty cool, actually.
It is a good balance. It actually really is like the perfect balance of those two energies. And I suppose that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Like even when those two things are different, they balance each other out. That's the purpose, I guess, isn't it? Of opposites or things of a different side, when they brought together, they create a one, and therefore there's a perfect balance, which we definitely have. So we need to do more of this.
Love it. Love it. Honestly, thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for doing this. This was so fun.
Of course, of course. And for now, Dayana, it has been a pleasure. It has been a privilege to talk to you today, and enjoy the rest of your evening. And I know it's probably like nearly 9 o'clock in the evening. So unwind. One very last question for you. In terms of holistic modalities, is there any particular thing that you tend to engage in the evening that you may or may not be doing tonight?
Not gonna lie, I've been doing gua sha, which is basically a little bit of face yoga.
Nice.
Which is kind of like relaxing the muscles of your face. And sometimes just doing a little breathing technique is also very helpful. So sometimes I just alternate between those two.
Nice. I'm going to take that on board, and I'm going to do some of that myself tonight. I don't know if I've got the face mask, but I can definitely do. You don't need a face
mask. You just need lotion and moisturizer or an oil, and just kind of like do movements with your face, and even just opening your mouth like one. That's
true, because that's just like releases all that tension around your ears and your jaw and everything, right?
Yeah.
Amazing. That's my routine for tonight.
I love it.
Carmona, you're a legend. We love you very much here at TCM, and everyone here will hear from you again next week.
Yes, they will.
Peace out, everyone. Speak soon, Dayana. Speak soon.
Bye.
Mwah.